Hello everyone. Today we're making UK Garage, or is it UK Garage? Either way, I'm sorry for the terrible accent. I'm just gonna call it UKG for the rest of the video. And we're making it on the Korg Volca sample. In this video, I primarily use samples that came loaded on the factory settings, but occasionally I will use samples that I got from Splice. And for any of those samples, I'll be sure to call them out and link them in the description. I've never made UKG before, so I appreciate you joining me as we figure it out together. We'll start by adjusting the tempo to around 130 beats per minute, and we'll turn the swing up to about 20. First, let's find a kick sample. This one sounds pretty good. I'm going to take the decay down a little bit just to reduce some of that low end at the end of the sample tail. Around 40 is good. I'm also going to take the volume down very slightly to about 110. Most UKG tracks use what's called a two-step beat, which basically involves syncopated kick drums that skip a beat. So it's not your typical 4-on-the-floor pattern found in most genres of house music. But instead of getting into the technicalities, let's put that on steps 1 and 11. Let's give that a listen. Very basic so far. So we need to add a snare. So I'll go to slot 2. I want to find a snare that's kind of acoustic sounding, but snappy at the same time. This will be our main snare. This one sounds pretty good. I'm also going to take the decay down of the snare sample just to give it a little more pop and snappiness. I'll put that on steps 5 and 13. With the kick and the snare, we've got two basic elements of our two-step beat. Let's listen. To keep the UKG vibe going, we'll add an accent snare. So I'll look for something a little clickier, in air quotes, than our main snare. I'll go to slot 3. Let's find our sample. This one sounds pretty good. Let's adjust some parameters to make it a bit clickier. We'll do this by shortening the decay all the way down to about 15. I'll also turn the volume down a little bit, maybe to about 95, so that it doesn't overpower our main snare, but complement it. I'll go into step mode, and I'll put the accent snare on steps 3, 7, 8, 10, and 15. Let's listen to these three samples together. Sounding good so far. One thing I wish the Volca sample would let you do is adjust the swing and grid position of individual samples, but we're left with the global swing parameter for now. Next, let's find ourselves an open hi-hat. I'll go to slot 4, and let's find a suitable sample. I like the sound of this one, but let's bring that decay way down. About 45 is pretty good. I'll go to step mode, and I'm going to put that on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. Let's give that a listen with our kick and snares. I'm going to take the volume of this open hi-hat down just a bit, maybe to about 110. Maybe even down to about 90. It sounds good, but kind of plain. Let's add some groove to this hi-hat sample. I'll go back to step mode. I'm also going to put this sample on steps 2, 8, and 10. Let's give that a listen. It sounds a little groovier than before, but let's turn these additional steps into closed hi-hat sounds. To do that, we don't even need to find a new sample. We can adjust the parameters of our current sample to make it sound like a closed hi-hat and get some real good shuffle going that UKG is known for. So I'll go to step mode. I'll hold down step 2, and I'm going to shorten the decay all the way down to about 10. And I'm going to do the same for steps 8 and 11. Let's listen to just the hi-hats for now. I'll exit step mode, hold function, solo, and hit step 4. Let's give that a listen. Now let's listen with our other samples. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute those. Sweet, we've got a basic UKG drum beat going. Now that most of our percussion is out of the way, I think it's a good time to add some bass. I'll go to slot 5 and unmute it. I loaded up this bass sample from the Soundsmith's Dark Bassline House Pack on Splice. What makes this bass sound unique to UKG is that it almost sounds like it came from an organ with heavy emphasis on the low end. Just FYI, the default pitch of this bass sample is in the key of C. I'll go to step mode and I'm going to put this on steps 1, 4, 7, 8, 11, and 14. Let's listen to the bass sample on its own. So I'll hold function, solo, hit slot 5. Sounds okay, but we can make it a little more funky by changing the pitch on some of the steps. I'll pitch step 7 down just a bit by holding step 7, function, and pitching it down 5 semitones. I'll do the same to step 8. So I'll hold step 8, function, pitch it down 5 semitones. So let's give that a listen. I'll pitch step 14 up just a little bit. How about 1 semitone? Let's hear how that sounds with our other samples. Sounding great so far. I'm going to take the volume down very slightly so that it doesn't overpower our percussion. Probably down to about 100. How about next we add a synth to our sequence? So I'll go to slot 6. I got this synth sample from Toolroom's UK House Volume 2 pack on Splice. FYI, like the bass, this synth sample is also in the key of C. I'll go to step mode, and I'm going to put this sample on steps 1, 5, 8, and 14. Let's also put a little reverb on this sample. So I'll hit function, reverb, and press slot 6. I think that makes it a bit more atmospheric. Let's listen to the synth sample on its own. I kind of like the staccato vibe of this synth pattern, so I'm going to leave it as is. Let's listen with our other samples so far. To give our sequence a bit more of a backdrop or a foundation, I think we need to add some chords to the background. I'll go to slot 7 and unmute that. I've got this one-shot chord sample that I got from the Komorebi Audio UK Garage samples pack on Splice. I'm going to put some reverb on this sample as well by holding function, reverb, and pressing slot 7. Let's go to step mode and put this on steps 1, 5, 9, and 12. Let's listen to that on its own by holding function, solo, and pressing slot 7. Kind of boring, so let's play around with the pitch on some of these steps. I'll go to step mode and hold down step 5, press function, and I'll pitch it down -2 semitones. And I'm going to pitch steps 9 and 12 up to 3 semitones. So hold step 9, function, pitch it up +3 semitones, and I'll do the same for step 12. Let's give that a listen. Now let's listen to that with just our percussion. I think the high cut frequency is a tad harsh, so I'm going to take it down just a bit. I think 100 sounds good. Let's give that another listen. Now, you can't have UKG without some smooth R&B like vocals. So I'll go to slot 8.
There's nothing left to say.
I got this sample from Sample Magic's Soulful Vocals 3 pack on Splice, which, again, is in the key of C. Having longer samples on the Korg Volca sample is notoriously difficult because we only have 16 steps in a sequence, but I'll show you a few tips that can make it work. I noticed that there's a very slight rest before the singing actually starts on this sample, so I'm going to move the start point up of this sample to about 8.
There's nothing left to say.
Like our chord and synth samples, I'm going to put some reverb on the vocal.
There's nothing left to say.
I'm going to put this on step 1. Let's give that a listen with just our chords.
There's nothing left to, there's nothing left to, there's nothing left to say.
As you can hear, the sample just cuts off in the middle and repeats over from the beginning. Here's what I do to get the full sample playing while performing. I'll go into step mode. I'll keep this sample on step 1, but the moment that my sequence starts playing, I'll take it off of step 1 and put it back on step 1 after the sequence plays through one additional time. Let me show you what I mean.
There's nothing left to say. There's nothing left to say. There's nothing left to say.
Another thing you can do is manually play the sample as you perform. So I'm going to unmute my percussion and I'm going to take this off of step 1, exit step mode, and I will just play it in manually while the rest of the sequence is playing.
There's nothing left to say. There's nothing left to say. There's nothing left to say.
These are two ways that I get longer samples to play, but do whatever works best for you. I think we might want to add just a bit more percussion, and I'm thinking that this sequence could use a shaker. So I'm going to go to slot 9, and let's see if we can find a sample that will work. To make this sample sound more like a shaker, I'm going to move the start point all the way up to about 40. I'm going to pitch it down 2 semitones. Turn the attack up to about 45. And I'm going to go to step mode and put this on every step. Let's give this a listen with just our percussion. To give this pattern a bit more shuffle, I'll go back into step mode and I'm going to turn the volume down on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. The same steps where our kick is playing. This will allow the kick to punch through a bit more and give it sort of a pumping kind of vibe. So I'll hold down step 1, turn the volume down to about 50, and I'll do the same for steps 5, 9, and 13. First, let's give that a listen on its own. And here's how it sounds with just the percussion and the rest of our samples. I think we've got all of our samples in place for a very basic but fun UKG sequence. Let's play out this sequence, gradually introducing individual elements. Let's add our synth, hats, percussion, how about our bass? And of course our vocals. Let's add our shaker. Add back in our kick. Let's solo our chords and add everything back in. That was a really fun track to make. I hope you found this video informative. Let me know in the comments what I should make next. Thanks so much for watching.